It's Jai452 here, alongside a wonderful, awesome guest and the lovely Just Jess. So, Jess, can you say hello?
Hello. Hi, hello.
Awesome. So, as always, guys, we're doing these interviews to understand a little bit more about cosplay because, cosplay is a big thing, or it's starting to be over here in the UK. And a lot of people don't really know just what exactly cosplay is because some people think, oh, it's just dressing up, it's just people dressing up, and it's so not. So Jess is very kindly, um, she's very kindly um, set aside some time for us today, and she's going to take us through some of the cosplay questions that I have. But first, how are you, Jess? How are you doing?
I'm I'm doing really well, thank you. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for taking the time out to sit and talk with us about all things cosplay. So
No,
my
thanks for having me.
awesome. My first question for you is, when did you first start cosplaying?
Ooh, I wish it was a long time ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. It was probably 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Do you remember what your first cosplay piece was?
Yeah, it was surprise, surprise. It was Misty from Pokemon.
Yay! Um, so what kind of reaction did you first get? Like, how did you feel when you first started cosplaying?
Oh, well, it was one of those things that I wished I knew existed, like when I was a bit younger, because I mean, I'm well into my 20s now, but I think that if I knew that cosplay was a thing, I would have started it when I was like 12 because it's totally right up my alley. Um, so yeah, like my first reaction to the cosplay world was like, why didn't I know this existed 10 years ago?
Um, who or what inspires you to cosplay?
Um, that's a good question. I mean, I do follow quite a lot of cosplayers online, and I think one of the first girls I found is Tracy Hines. She's not super well known, but she's getting there. And do you know who she is? Like, I
No,
don't know. It's okay.
sorry.
She's a singer and a cosplayer, and that's what I am as well. So I found her on YouTube and just like totally got addicted to her videos. But she's really well known for being Ariel, like the Little Mermaid, and I think she was probably like my first cosplay idol, probably. So I think that I discovered her, yeah, about 4 or 5 years ago now. So yeah.
Awesome. It's kind of funny you should like the previous interview to this one, or it should
Hmm.
be now, guys, because we're talking to you from the future,
Right.
um, was with a YouTuber who started in YouTube, but then through that slightly got into cosplay, and that's by Chris Villain.
Oh yeah, I know who that is.
Amazing guy. Like, I,
Yeah, how do I know who he is? Chris Villain. That
because
sounds so familiar.
he did videos like he did a male version of Ariel where he sang Part of Your World.
Oh, totally. Chris Villain, he did a video with Tracy Hines and she played Jessie and Camacho or whatever his name is was James. So you've
Hmm.
probably seen her then. Oh, that's so funny. Cool. Yeah, I know who
Uh,
he is.
he's such a great guy to sit and talk with because like even though we did the interview, which is the similar one here, we sat and spoke about cosplay after that, and I was bouncing ideas off of him, and each time while I was doing it, I was like pinching myself, going, "Is this real? Is this real?" Because like he's one of my idols on YouTube, and I'm like, "Oh, it's so great to talk to him."
That's awesome. Yeah, and he did the Baby It's Cold Outside with Tracy
Mm.
Hines as Elsa. Yeah,
I love that.
that's
I
her. Yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
that one.
That's so funny.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so awesome. I'm actually just gonna see if I can grab that and move that. Sorry guys, we had a little bit of a hiccup there. Um, I just had my recording thing and it was sat underneath me, so I'm kind of like
Oh, okay.
moving that out of the way. Technical stuff there, guys. Um, so yeah, do these people that inspire you to cosplay still cosplay?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's more than just Tracy Hines. Like, I mean, Jessica Negri is one of my like favorites. She's just so funny. So, I met her actually when I went to my first con as Misty. I met Jessica Negri, and it was really cool. And she threw some confetti into my cleavage. It was really funny, as she would. So yeah, like she's out there. A girl called Katie Cosplays is amazing. She does a really awesome Elsa cosplay as well as a really good Sailor Jupiter cosplay. It's so good. And there's so many more, like Meg Turney. Oh man, I wish I like memorized the list of all my idols now. But yeah, totally, they still cosplay for sure. And like even some, like I was living in Glasgow for a while, and I met some awesome cosplayers there too that are just super talented. So yeah,
A lot of my earlier interviews will be with people from Glasgow, so
cool.
don't forget to check them out, guys. Shameless plug. So, what has been the most challenging cosplay that you've ever done? And to help you out on this one, because I'm going to break it down into two halves, the most challenging from making the costume and the most challenging from the acting side, because there is a little bit of acting involved in cosplay. And to just kind of explain that a little bit further, it, acting could stand for how you like hold yourself as a character, how the character speaks, how the character would maybe interact with people. So these are all things that people who are cosplayers kind of have to study if they're going for a specific character.
Mhm.
So which side would you like to tackle first? Would you like to tackle the costume or the acting?
Um, well, I'll do costume first.
Okay.
Uh, the hardest. It's funny because it's a minimalistic costume, but really, well, it looks like it, but it's really not. I tried to do Mystique like from the films, so that was kind of one of those costumes that kind of crashed and burned. So that was too bad. But it was really frustrating. Body paint is so difficult. And it sucked because I was actually judging a cosplay contest that day, and it took me like 4 hours to get into this like Mystique, and I ended up in tears because it just wasn't working, and I had to put a dress on. You know, I was trying to go for the naked look, right, to like to be true to the films. So it didn't really work out. That was probably the most challenging. I made it work, and people still like enjoyed it and knew what I was, obviously, but yeah, it didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted. In terms of acting like the character, that's a really good question. I'm actually a professional cosplayer for children. I do like kids parties as Disney princesses. And I think the hardest princess to grasp is Snow White because she's so classic and soft spoken, and she has this voice that I can't really put on. It's very difficult. So I haven't done Snow White in a long time, but that's probably the most challenging character, I'd probably say. She's a tough one.
Um, in your opinion, what is the most difficult thing or character to cosplay as, again, from a costume point of view or from an acting point of view?
Something that I haven't done before, like
The most difficult thing, like what would be one thing that you might look at and go, well, I'm never going to attempt that?
oh.
Or what is something that you've kind of looked at as a judge and went, I don't know how this person has pulled this off?
That's a really good question. I mean, I don't think I think the whole point of cosplay is not to limit yourself. So if there's something that you think you can't do, I mean, you should try it anyway. And I think that's what makes it so exciting. And you can find new ways to pull things off. Like you don't have to look like for instance, being like a character that isn't human, like being like an animal, or like a good example is I can't remember who it was, but I saw a girl do Lola Bunny like from Space Jam, and obviously she's not a rabbit, but it just the way she was, carrying herself, and the way she had done her hair and her makeup, she looked like the character, even though, she's obviously a human. But so I don't know. I think you shouldn't limit yourself. You should just go for it, even if it's not your species or whatever. You should just kind of go for it. As a judge, oh boy, I saw someone do a really good no face from Spirited Away, and
Ah,
they really had that kind of ghostly way of moving about, and I thought that was really, really cool. It's always awesome when people can dress up and also embody the character and be so true to it, because it's one thing to dress up, but it's a whole other thing to be the character, So that's what makes cosplay different and special.
awesome. Um, okay, so my next question is a little bit off because I don't have it written down.
Okay.
Um, but what is one thing that you have either attempted to do and it's kind of like really just kind of flat out failed? I know you spoke about mistake, or what is one thing that you would just never do when it comes to cosplay?
What I'd never do. Like specific to making a costume
Yeah,
or like, right,
yeah.
okay. Um, I don't want to say never. I mean, there's things that I can't afford to do right now. I mean, it's some of the materials, can be quite expensive. What I don't know. I'd probably attempt anything, honestly. Like,
Would
this is
you
such a,
ever try do you know those kind of a perfect example, like whenever you go to a Comic Con, there's always a, a heap load of stormtroopers,
mm,
and they're always there in the most amazing outfits, and they're like kitted out, and then you'll occasionally, like nowadays, we're seeing more and more like mech suits that they're in. Would you ever wear or try and attempt to make anything like that, or is that something that you would be like, no,
No, you
thank
know
you?
what? I would love to. I'd love to do Samus from Metroid Prime at some point. I think that would be really cool. And to like make the armor, but then have like Zero Suit Samus underneath. I've always wanted to do that. Obviously, it's going to take some time and it'll be a little bit expensive. But totally, I would attempt that for sure. I think making armor is so cool. I haven't like really dabbled there in that realm yet, but I plan to.
I remember going to my first Comic Con, and there was a man there in an Iron Man outfit,
Cool.
and it was like an actual operating kind of one,
Oh,
because like
amazing.
his chest lit up, and he pressed something and his helmet popped. And at one point, he kind of came through to the area where we were queuing up the masquerade,
Hmm.
and he popped his helmet, and all the sweat that was just literally pouring off this poor guy. I was like, I don't envy you at all.
Yeah, so much sweat involved in cons.
I think for me, that would probably be one of the ones I would like. I wouldn't do a heavy armored kind of one. Like even the Stormtroopers one, I'd be very kind of
Just for that reason, yeah.
sketchy for that reason because, you know, Comic Cons, even though they're still a kind of new thing over here in the UK, as you know yourself, um, they're packed with people.
Totally,
So
yeah.
all that body heat under a big heavy suit and then a helmet and then there's possible stage lighting, you're gonna like cook yourself to death.
Yeah. Well, now that you mentioned the heat, I probably wouldn't do a fursuit because those look crazy hot. And
Mm.
I played some stupid character for some event and I was in a fursuit and it was the worst thing ever. It was terrible. I'll never do it again unless there's like ventilation systems inside. I know
Mm.
like in like filming Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, like some of the costumes actually had like fans inside of them. So if I can ever afford to do that, I'll definitely give it a
Wow.
try.
Okay, so when you're going to a cosplay event, what is the one thing that you're most excited for?
Ooh. Um, huh. I mean, being in an environment where everyone is into the same thing is super cool. And I kind of stick out in my like group of friends as being the only like nerd, I guess. And it's cool. It's cool to go and be able to connect with people on that level and just kind of talk about all the nerdy things that you're into. So that's really exciting. In terms of like the cosplay side, I love I love attention. Getting my picture taken and having people, come want to take pictures with me, it's great. It's so great. I shamelessly admit it because I don't know. I'm a Leo. I like attention. So that's always really, really fun, especially work into the costume. Having people say like "nice job" is super rewarding. So
If you do put a little work into a costume, you've got every right to show it off.
totally, I
Be
think
proud
so.
of it. So the flip side to that particular question, what is the one you used to or still do find kind of nerve-wracking?
Ooh, nerve-wracking, not so much. I don't really get nervous, unless like I have another mystique like problem epidemic. I don't really get nervous. Yeah, no, there's my partner, for instance, he's a photographer, so he takes a lot of photos. We go together, and he gets very like nervous because he's a bit claustrophobic. So if we're ever in a room with a lot of people, he kind of like starts to freak out a bit. So if ever I'm nervous about something, it's usually because I don't want him to be uncomfortable. But me myself, I'm totally in my element and really comfortable.
Awesome. Um, so there are multiple different types of Comic Cons. There's obviously the big once a year ones, like your MCMs, your film and Comic Cons, and your San Diego ones, and all the rest. But there's also the smaller local ones. Which of the two do you prefer? Do you prefer the big ones, small ones, or do you like a blend of the two?
Ooh, I mean, the big ones are always really exciting because usually there's really awesome guests when all the like the really amazing cosplayers come out, probably because they're being paid to be there. But obviously, there's really the great things. There's great things about both of them though, because the small ones, you start making friends. Like when you go to each event, like you can see people that you've met before, and you can be like, oh hey, like this is where we hang out, at all these little mini cons, and you can always expect to see, especially if you're living in the same city for a long time, you start to make friends. Also, for me, I started getting asked to judge at smaller events, so that's always cool too. But yeah, I like them both, but in like a different way. The big ones are always so much fun, so much fun.
Awesome. You mentioned about judging there, so I'm going to pick your brains about this. Just how difficult is it?
My God, it's so difficult, especially when there's no categories, when it's just like everybody and there's kids and grown-ups and, everybody in between. Like, how do you judge an adorable little, Ray from The Force Awakens, like against some awesome, like cool, Death Note cosplay done by like some 30-year-old? It's so difficult. So that sucks, be having to judge children against grown-ups. But also, even with categories, like there's so much talent and you want to just give everybody a prize. But yeah, no, it is hard for sure.
I'll give you a little bit of a thing for me. The second ever event that I did,
Hmm.
um, it was during Halloween,
Yeah.
and I was at the Halloween one in Glasgow,
Okay.
and I did a patchwork Harley,
Okay, cool.
and my makeup wasn't like fantastically amazing or anything like that. It was just normal face paint with the kind of stitches across my face.
Cool.
And they called me up to do my bit, so I did my bit, and then came off. And I was saying to my friend who was doing a zombie Joker, I was like, "There's no way that I'm gonna get anything, none whatsoever." I only went and got third place, and like when they first called my name, I'm like looking around because like they said Patchwork Harley, so I'm like,
Who is that?
no, they here. Did I miss them? And my friend's like, that's you. Go. And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Um, so I was like, what? But
I love that though. The humility is awesome. Like I judge that. This one guy, I forget his name, but he Possible from Kim Possible, and he was so surprised that he got like I think we gave him second, but he was like so thankful, and it made us feel so good. I'm like, oh man, you need to be recognized more for your talent. Like it's
funny
Cool.
thing onto that, like for me, I can understand where that guy's coming from because as soon as I came off the stage, because like I had to just kind of like compose myself on stage. As soon as I came off it, I was like shaking like mad and just kind of like grabbed my friend and hugged him and was like, I'm shaking here, just hide me from the crowd. Um, which is unlike me because I'm actually kind of used to being on stage, because I have a
When
background
you don't
in,
expect it though.
yeah, when you don't expect it, it's like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that was a real fun thing. Speaking of cosplay competitions, have you ever entered into and won anything yourself? And if so, what was running through your head?
Yeah, I've done two, I think.
Hmm.
I've done two. I did one kind of on the fly. I didn't know there'd be a cosplay contest, but I entered it anyways. But I was just Mary Jane, like from Spider-Man. It wasn't a very like complex costume. I was wearing like a shirt and pants and a wig. It wasn't that, yeah. So I entered that. But I think going through my head at that point was just like, yeah, this isn't going to win anything. um, but then the second was I went to Princess Mononoke, and that was the first costume that I made completely from scratch. Like I totally made every piece, so I was really proud of it, and I ended up getting first place. And that was awesome. To be recognized for something that I made was really. I don't get nervous, which is a blessing, I guess, because I'm a performer like by profession, so I don't get nervous anymore.
Awesome.
But I mean, it is different than what I usually do. Making a costume is still pretty new to me. So, I guess a little bit
I'm just
nervous.
gonna pause the interview there for a quick sec. We'll be back soon, guys. And we're back. So, my next question for you is we talked a bit about age difference and cosplayers there. So, let's kind of expand on that because I personally thought when I first started cosplaying last year that it was all mostly people in their like teens to maybe mid 30s, maybe 40s kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I was so shocked when I seen like little kids of like 4, 5, maybe even younger doing
Totally.
cosplay.
Nerdlings.
I know. And on the flip side to that, like I was so surprised to see even older people like in their 60s and maybe their 80s doing cosplay.
Cool.
Um, have you noticed that kind of thing and what's been your experience with that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said before, it's just this cool way for anybody who's interested in, these things to get together and just to kind of, be together as a collective and as a family. And sometimes you discover things like that when you're in your 60s, or you're born into a family that does it anyway. So you're 4 and 5 and you're dressing up like a stormtrooper because that's how you're raised. And it's cool. So no, definitely. And it's totally like a family friendly environment as well. Like it's not just for people in their 20s or whatever. And I think everybody's like the whole community is very accepting of like every age, which is, it's so special to have an event like that a family can go to and just enjoy all the things.
Awesome. Now you mentioned doing a Disney princess set for is it charity that you do that for, or is
No, it's my job. Well, one of
awesome,
them. Yeah,
awesome.
I run a company with my partner, and he and I, he's a photographer and I am the entertainer. So people hire us to come to their parties and entertain as I'm a princess, as
Awesome.
as popular princesses. Yeah.
What has been your most popular princess? Because you'd mentioned Snow White and how she's a little bit difficult due to the voice. But what has been some of the more popular princesses, and what has been some princesses that you haven't expected people to ask for, but yet they do?
Yeah, it's a great question. Definitely Elsa being the most popular because of reasons. Everybody loves Elsa. So Elsa is probably like 70% of the parties I do. It's crazy. Um, I'm surprised at how much Belle bookings I get as well, and she happens to be my favorite, and or one of my favorites. Probably my most favorite is Belle, growing up, anyways. And yeah, I get lots of bookings for her as well. So I'd say like I don't know, 3 in 10 are Belle almost. Seems like that. Some Ariel. I'm surprised at how little Rapunzel bookings I get because she's got the best movie, like by far, I think. And she's so much fun. So I'm really surprised because I think I've only ever done like 3 Rapunzel parties, and I've had her in my repertoire for the past like 7 months. And yeah, she's never requested. So if you're watching this and you have kids and you live where I am, Rapunzel because she's so much fun. Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised at that as well because Tangled was a very big movie over here when it came out. Like people just loved Tangled, and I'm like,
Masterpiece.
I don't get it.
I don't know.
Um, Glad that the Elsa has been kind of like a forerunner for you, and
Yeah.
Belle, that's
I
kind
know.
of out
Oh,
of
I love
nowhere.
Belle. Yeah. But yeah,
Um,
Elsa's been the biggest one for sure, and I think it's because of Elsa that I really got into it. So I have her to thank. She's very very close to my heart.
while we're actually on the subject of Elsa, we can let the people at home know that's kind of how I found you.
Hey,
Um,
really?
yeah, it is because you were doing a entertainment part at a Comic Con in Glasgow, which unfortunately I was asked, are you going to be able to make it to this? And unfortunately I couldn't because I had a
Oh,
prior thing I had to do. But somebody posted a video of you as Elsa on stage singing Let It Go.
oh yeah.
You kind of like, the one thing that I loved about this was the fact that you encouraged the crowd to do it with you. And I'm like, that is so great. That's kind of like the thing I would do. Um,
Yeah.
So yeah, I sent you through a message and I was like, okay, would you like to come and do this? Because it's fun.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
but have to admit, love that video. Wished I could it was like longer than it was, so I could have seen the full performance. But it looked
No,
so great,
it
and I
was
was like,
fun.
damn, I wish I was there. Um, okay, so my next question has to do with the almighty props.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Yes. So this is actually kind of like a three-part question. So I'm going to start with the really easy one. Do you make or buy your own props?
Made some and I bought some, so a little bit of both.
Okay. When using props, sorry, when using props going to a Comic Con, do you prefer big, big, massive props, medium-sized props, or something that's really nice and small and can just fit in your purse and you can pretty much go?
Well, I mean, obviously it depends on the costume, but like I had a big spear for Princess Mononoke, and it was like able to bring it anywhere, and it was the ceiling was actually really low at this particular event on the ceiling, and it was hard to get into the car, and yeah, that was kind of difficult. I would have made it like a foot shorter. Thought about it. So I mean, big props are definitely harder to maneuver, but they're worth it because it makes you feel so much more character when the prop is life size, you know.
Hmm.
But having small props is also really awesome. When this one weird costume, I had 2 unfinished costumes. I had Joker, like gender bend Joker, and Ariel as Joker Ariel. It was really weird. I don't know. But I had a fork, and that was really easy. Or sorry, a dingle hopper. But they almost didn't let me in with it because it was so pointy. But I
Ah,
to maneuver.
I see. I see. Okay, so the third part of that question, which will probably give you a better kind of spin for this, the reason why I ask which size of prop do you prefer using going to a Comic Con. If you're doing a photo shoot, which I dare say you do plenty of them, um, do you prefer having a prop then? And are you okay with it being any size? Or again, do you tend to work with a particular size of prop?
No, no, I don't. I guess I feel like I haven't done enough costumes to even have a really good opinion on this, but I I don't know. I mean, when I did my Marowak costume, I really liked having the bone. Like that was really, really cool. Um, I guess having a prop does make you feel a little more comfortable. It makes you like when I was Princess Leia, I felt so like I'm like, okay, I'll just stand here awkwardly. But then as soon as they gave me this like big, huge, I don't even know what it was, some sort of a gun. I don't know, musket. I don't know, a big gun to hold. I was like, okay, yeah, like Leia would totally hold this, like of course. Or even like standing next to like one of the Tusken Raiders, I could like put my arm around him or something. So yeah, it does make me feel less awkward because I tend to be a little more awkward without props. So yeah, props are good.
Okay, so my next question is, what are the top either five or three funniest things that have ever happened?
Oh my goodness. Okay. Funniest things that ever happened to me at a comic. This is so hard. I mean, Negri throwing confetti in my boobs was great. Is this like this interview? Is this like rated G or like